Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Insurance COVID Cast, brought to you by Insurance Post and Insurance Age. And today we have another Insurtech 100 special, this time focused on claims. I'm delighted to say, I'm joined by my co-host, which is the Sona CEO and the man behind the Insurtech 100, Matt Connolly. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
And today we have guests from three of the Insurtechs featured in the Insurtech 100, and they are Floodflash, who is represented by co-founder Adam Rimmer, Snapsheet, represented by their president Jamie Yoder, and Tractable with their co-founder and president Adrien Cohen. Welcome all.
Hello.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So, first of all, you're in the Insurtech 100. I'd just like to ask you, basically, what have been the most significant developments within your business over the last year? And I'll come to you first of all, Adam.
Cool. Thanks, Jonathan. So yeah, it's been a super exciting year. We've only really been trading for just over a year. Really. Lots of kind of developments with our parametric flood insurance product. You know, where we moved from initially a very simple single binary flood depth, then immediate payout trigger. Clients can now have a multi-trigger version of that policy, which means they can get sort of even tighter correlation and even better coverage. Moving out with more and more distribution partners who've been brokers have been brilliant in the UK, who we sell through. So we now have Marsh, Lockton, Gallagher, Henderson's all now distributing the product to UK small businesses, which is brilliant. They have really seen the potential of this sort of new type of insurance to work for them. We've brought in one of the top three reinsurers as well to participate in the program, alongside Everest Syndicate and Lloyd's, where we are a cover holder and where the Floodflash policies are underwritten. But really, I mean, the single most important development in the last year has been when Storm Ciara hit in February, which I think what you sort of might be expecting me to say here. So that was always like the elephant in the room for Floodflash. It was always, people would always say, "Oh, this is such a great idea. This makes so much sense. Why doesn't this already exist?" And then they'd say, "Oh, but have you ever actually paid anybody?" And until February, the sort of, the answer was unfortunately no. But Storm Ciara hit on the 9th of Feb on the Sunday, and then on Monday we had paid all but one of the claims that came in full. Apart from one, as I say, and the only reason we hadn't paid that one is because they hadn't sent us their bank details yet. And it was awesome. Like, it was, to me, like, that was like a watershed moment for parametric insurance, when it stopped being this thing that people can talk about at conferences and like how might parametric insurance kind of help change the claims process in the future, and it became much more tangible then. We had parametric insurance that saved businesses and saved livelihoods that were unable to be protected before. And the testimonials we had from customers were just awesome. We had one customer sort of swearing on the lives of his children that taking out a Floodflash policy was the best thing he'd done for 5 years, which is probably about as ringing an endorsement as you can get. So we were all super proud of that. Whole team was super proud of it. We were really pleased. Really pleased with that. So I would certainly put that as our single biggest, most significant development of the last 12 months.
I'll come to you next, Jamie.
It's been an interesting year to say the least. But so Snapsheet obviously has been known, and we've been around since 2011 as sort of the pioneer of virtual auto claims. And obviously it's virtual basically over the years. So we've made significant strides in that, in terms of similar to what Adam said, and adding some big marquee names. So we're now doing work with 15 of the top 25 carriers in the U.S. and close to 100 overall in that core business. So great strides at that. But really, obviously, COVID was sort of a real catapult into virtual, as I almost say virtual claims by necessity, not necessarily by design. So over the years, while large carriers had used it as an MOI, it was always sort of a partial one. And this has really transformed them to really have to operate on virtual claims, again, by necessity. And as claims frequency are down, they can handle that. But how do you really give them the digital tools in essence to really do this at scale as volume returns? So this has been sort of the testament of virtual as a more strategic method of inspection for the claims process. And the big shift for Snapsheet is, while we've always provided the service that actually use our technology to do it, this last year has really been all about our software as a service and licensing out both for the appraisals to put the power of our technology into the hands of carriers as they now look to basically arm their people with the ability to automate and drive scale with virtual. And then beyond that, this past year, even before COVID, was really all about our end-to-end claims solution. So Snapsheet Claims really is providing that digital engagement and automated workflow from F&OL all the way through settlement. And at the beginning of the year, we had announced with large carrier that we were working on, and then we've subsequently had several launches with the Insurtech. So from big to small, the ability to really drive a true digital experience of the claims, sort of a native cloud claim solution, that leverages a lot of the optimizations we've done. So really those two fronts. So big year for software as a service for us, and obviously virtual now at scale. It's kind of like we were built for this moment. Interestingly, I hate to say almost.
And finally, I'll come to you, Adrien.
Yeah, it definitely resonates, the the need and the acceleration for virtual and automation. So I kind of understand the question more as to what happened before COVID. I'm sure we'll go back to COVID a bit later. But I would say this has also been a very phenomenal year for us at Tractable. Maybe if I had to think about the most significant developments, I'd probably highlight three things. I'd highlight the growth, the product, and the financing for us as a company. On the growth side, we've doubled the number of countries we operate in 2019. We're now present across 3 continents, working with the leading players like AGS in the UK, Talanx, Covia, Tokyo Marine, and so on and so forth. And that's obviously a big achievement and a big acceleration that has happened in 2019. Specifically, when it comes to APAC and Japan in particular, it's really interesting because we started our operation early 2019. We hired our country manager in March, and today we already have a team of 15 people on the ground. And so all of that acceleration has happened in 2019. So that's on the growth side. I think on the product side, what was really important for us in 2019 was the deployment and going live and in full production with our new solution, which essentially is about putting the AI in the pocket of the policyholder to support the policyholder whenever accidents hit, really. And so to really use the scale and speed of AI to ensure that whenever accidents hit, you can have an instant decision based on this instant analysis of the damage to your car. And that is a new solution that we actually deployed at scale in 2019. So for us, obviously, a second very important development. And third, it's hard, as a tech startup, financing is always important. And as you know, we raised our Series C a few weeks before COVID, not a few months. So I think here timing was quite fortunate. But we raised our Series C, a $25 million round, which puts our total funding to $55 million. And that was obviously a big milestone for us as well.
Good stuff, guys. I have a question. You've all answered it to a degree. So I'm interested in how your businesses are seeking to change or shake up the traditional claims process. So we've heard AI, we've heard SaaS and virtual, and we've heard parametric. I'd also be really interested if you went into those a little bit deeper, but also how the insurance sector has been accommodating your ideas. So how well received were they? So Adrien, if you're happy to continue.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, I think Tractable is, our vision is really to use AI to accelerate the entire claim process. And that is really the guiding principle in everything we do in all of our product investment. We believe that AI can really simplify and accelerate the journey. And what we try to monitor is how we can convert the process from weeks into days, and in some cases, even minutes where possible. And that is because we see AI as a new technology that can bring real time, that can bring scale, and that can bring consistency. And if you leverage those 3 elements, the speed, the scale, and the consistency, you can actually make better decisions across the claim process. Now, specifically, the way this is being used, and the way we're kind of shaking up, to reuse your words, the claim process goes, end to end from the very first notice of loss. So from the moment the policyholder has an accident and calls its insurance company, to the moment the car is at the body shop, to the decision that are made by the appraiser looking at the car, all the way to settlement. And for every step in the way, you have a lot of friction today that comes from visual assessment. And this friction you can remove by automating the task, by having an AI that has learned to make the decision, really. And today, those solutions are deployed end to end with multiple carriers in many countries. In terms of how amenable the sector has been accommodating to this idea of using AI to speed the process and accelerate the process, it has really changed over time. Like, we started the company in 2014, and at the beginning we were really seen as a kind of visionary, but also like, this is interesting, but that's never going to happen anytime soon. And so in 2015 we started having our initial customers, so AGS in the UK, Covia in France, which are still key cornerstone customers for us, which was more about teams on the ground sharing the vision that this would really change the way claims are processed. And over the past few months, and with COVID even more, there's really been an acceleration for the demand of this technology. And I think it's gone from the this is a vision for the future to this is an absolute priority for us as a company, and that is why we've been experiencing this phenomenal traction.
Super. Jamie, same question to you, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I'll build on that a little bit. We sort of take a different tact a little bit, but in a very similar vein. So again, as I said before, Snapsheet was really, our whole point was really you can streamline the whole, the claims process, and virtual obviously sort of flipped the method of inspection. So if you went pre-COVID, virtual, over even the 8 years of doing it, it had really grown from nothing to about 10% of the overall sort of as a method of inspection for claims. And so what we've seen is kind of this barbell sort of adoption, if you say, around, shaking up the traditional process. Big carriers would use it. There were a couple who'd leaned in a little more significantly, but largely it was a minor, kind of a minor model that they would use, minor method of inspection that they would use within the whole. But we also had, huge adoption from Insurtechs and, really sort of self-insured innovators like rideshare, shared economy players who had obviously huge amounts of vehicles. They would go 100%. And so we proved out how to actually do that in all cases. So, while Adrien talked about where you can use computer vision, in a lot of cases, it can only work on a small number of cases at that. And so our view was, how do you operationalize the end process for 100% of it? And so it works for all and takes advantage as any advances on AI come in. The notion that the process and claims is always, what we call sort of bionic, the notion that it'll be some mix of humans and machines. So we use our intelligent automation and workflow to actually say, I can incorporate those anywhere, automate as much administrative tasks as possible, but apply it and get it to a human when it absolutely needs to with all the information. So in terms of seeking the change, I'd say, traditional insurers would lean into it at partial, but we proved out it could be done for 100% of the cases with the others. And now with COVID, you're seeing, as I said before, people have adopted virtual more by necessity and really sort of willingness to change the work. And now, we're trying to provide the tools out there to just say that from the platform standpoint, how do you really do that at scale for 100% of the cases, and over time take advantage of the AI in spots where it becomes available.
Understood. Thanks. And Adam.
Thanks. And yeah, great question. And well, I guess to start with, I would sort of make the assumption that the majority of our audience today are already familiar with what parametric insurance is, but for anyone sort of uninitiated, it's where payment is made based on some physical parameter that is measured instead of the cost of damage. So the most simple example is life insurance. If you die, a payment is made. Nobody tries to work out like how much your death cost or anything like that. It's just simple parameter, payment is made. And so, how are we trying to sort of change and shake up that traditional process? I guess it kind of really depends whether you consider what we're doing to be part of that traditional process at all, really. You know, some people certainly don't. You know, one of the questions we often get asked is like, is this even insurance? You know, so we for us, that claims process is kind of is very different. It's not about working out the cost of damage. It's about almost bypassing the entire process by saying, instead of adjusting a claim, we're going to say, right, this thing, you know, which for our first flood product is obviously water depth. We're going to say this thing correlates so well to your damage, and we can measure it and pay you out based on that so quickly that it is almost like an entire new product. And, you know, we do kind of see, certainly for this, you know, SME insurance and ultimately kind of consumer insurance as well, we do see it with almost like as a whole new category of insurance, rather than sort of shaking up the traditional insurance in many ways. Although, you know, parametric insurance has obviously existed in the reinsurance world for many years beforehand. And I think, and that was kind of actually really reflected into, also jump into your question about, you know, what is the reception that we got when we would speak to people about the product. That has really changed over the last, you know, like since we first set the company up a couple of years ago. And so, you know, when we first started doing this, the reception would be different depending on who we would speak to. Like often sort of people from the world of reinsurance and insurance-linked securities, who parametric insurance was slightly more familiar to. Because, you know, it's much more common at that scale, you know, would be more comfortable with it. But often we would speak to insurers, and we'd often be met with sort of blank faces. And, you know, somebody, you know, said, I spent, you know, 30 years underwriting flood, and this isn't how it works. And it would be, we found this strange inverse correlation between how, you know, long somebody had worked in insurance and how quickly they got the product. Often, you know, people who we'd go and speak to sort of potential customers, and, you know, the reaction would be, yeah, you know, as I said earlier, this kind of makes so much sense. Like, why doesn't it already exist? It just seems so simple. But that's kind of it's really interesting over the last, I'd say over the last 12 months, and particularly since the claims after Cara and Dennis in February, that attitude has started to change quite fast. I think there's been a real sort of noticeable shift in sort of how people view parametric insurance, and, you know, just how powerful it can be for the industry.
Thanks.
Sorry, there you go. First time I've been caught by the mute button there. But a number of you have already mentioned about the kind of the time pre-COVID and post-COVID. Can I ask, how have your business? You talked about, I suppose, in a way, how there's now kind of this demand for your offerings. But how have you adapted your businesses in light of COVID-19, particularly perhaps how you're actually working with prospects now? I'll come to you first of all, Jamie.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting from an operational standpoint. Obviously, the appraisal services business, we've always been virtual and people work from home. So that switch part was really easy for us in that context. But in terms of, you know, working with folks, I'll be really simple. It's really funny to me for how long video conferencing has been available, but yet nobody ever turned on the video. And yeah, obviously now everyone does. So, you know, having sort of working sessions with clients is you know, I mean, taking the, you know, sort of the obvious one, has been easy for someone who's been on a claim every day for the last, you know, a plane every day for the last 30 years. This has been in some ways an interesting relief to be able to work a little differently. But in terms of our focus and how the business is adapted, a little of it is what are the parts of our, you know, we have a fairly multifaceted business. What are the parts that are actually really relevant to what people are trying to do now with a little more expeditious efforts? And so while we'd always, you know, push sort of the appraisal sort of service so we can do it for them, obviously, you know, frequency is way down, and, you know, those who have staff, as they've adopted it, we have accelerated our efforts to say, how do we put the technology into your hands and really let you to do it? So we've sort of accelerated our efforts to engage clients on that, whereas in the past people were more receptive or more likely to really, you know, almost outsource the service of appraisals to us for the part that they would do virtual. And now they're saying, how do we actually mobilize the broader workforce? So it's clearly changed the emphasis and the timing. We've also seen a shift from those who previously we had talked to with end-to-end claims. They're more looking at how do I just optimize a certain part that was an acute pain point driven by COVID, for instance, payments, so digital payments, right? So many carriers still write check, and the simplest thing of, well, the person who writes the check couldn't get into the office to write the checks. And it's not that they haven't fixed that now, but it really exposed a real acute problem that in times like this, people are looking for an easy win, something they can do with a small amount of effort that has a big payback both for their customers, but also really streamlines their operations in a particular area versus tackling the full breadth at one go. So,
okay, Adam.
Yeah, I think in many ways very similar to what Jamie was just saying, and that for us as a business, as a young business, like actually moving our kind of day-to-day operations to a sort of fully remote world has actually been really simple. Everybody, everything we do is cloud-based. It's really that's been kind of no worry at all. I guess the one extra bit for us is that we do have our physical sensor, our proprietary sensor that we measure flood depth with. I would love to show you one on the camera here, but they're actually all in our office, so I don't have any here at home. Those have to be installed at the client's building. But that has been able to continue because the installation actually always happens on the outside of the building. Because what we're trying to capture here is catastrophic external flood, like river flood, flash flooding, sort of storm surge, rather than escape of water. So sensor goes on the outside of the building. If that can happen with our installation engineers being fully socially distanced from the client, etc. So once we kind of worked out that process, in the first few days of being in the situation, it's actually been really smooth, which has been great. Yeah, so that's been great. Like our broker success team, who manage all our relationships with our distribution partners, obviously, insurance brokers, as a breed, love a sort of in-person relationship. So our broker success team, previously that is what they have done. That's obviously now moved to largely doing, onboarding sessions, coaching sessions for brokers about how to talk about, how to sell Floodflash, how to answer their clients' questions about it. That all now happens over Zoom. But yeah, I think they sort of, like the rest of the world, have now moved to that sort of new operation pretty swiftly. So yeah, we're feeling pretty comfortable.
And finally, I'll come to you, Adrien.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think as any company, right, when COVID hit, we went through the right kind of contingency planning and assessing the business situation and the type of actions we should take. At Tractable as a company, we were lucky to be super resilient. And I think it comes down to having the right kind of geographical footprint. It is difficult to manage so many geographies, but it was a good thing to have, a big part of your business in Asia and Japan, which was not as hurt by COVID as Europe or North America. So we had those, pillars. I think there is a question about the pricing model. For us, it's very subscription based. And so I suspect that companies that are more like transactional based, given the decrease in volume of claims, would have been hurt more severely. And eventually, obviously, the cash situation and the fact that, we raised money just before is just good timing, but that's also obviously a key component. So all those elements, the geographical footprint, the pricing model, and the cash situation makes us really resilient. That said, there's been a number of operations and functions that we've had to evolve and adapt. And maybe I can give.
I think Adrien might have frozen. Is he frozen on your screens, or?
Yeah.
On mine.
Well, hopefully we can welcome him back. Shall I wrap it up with
Adrien's back. We didn't catch the last minute and a half of your answer there, Adrien. Sorry.
Yeah, so I can just wrap up. I don't know when I broke up, but I think I was just saying two things. One was we're very resilient, and I wanted to give you two examples of functions that we've had to adapt or evolve in the context of COVID. And the two examples I wanted to mention are the field sales and the lead generation. It's also something you mentioned, Jonathan. So on the sales side, as a Infotech company, obviously usually have a model that's very heavy on field sales. So guys on the ground, having lunch, creating the right relationship, etc., etc. Now, obviously, it's not something that can continue in the context of COVID. And so here, I think what we saw is that we're lucky to have, in a way, to have a long sales cycle. So that means that you usually have a very large pipeline already active. And so for many months, your salespeople are able to continue to work on their pipeline without having to meet. Obviously, at some point, the issue is about generating new leads, right? So I think for the next 6 months, as a business, we don't see an issue. But the question becomes in Q4 or Q1 next year, what will the pipeline look like? And here, I think it's boiled down to really changing the way we generate leads. Historically, we would rely really very heavily on trade shows and conferences, which again is not something that happens anymore. And so we really shifted our model from offline to online. We this month gave 2 very big webinars, one in the US, one in Europe, alongside some of the key chief claim officer at Allstate, at Allianz, at Generali. And those events are really a very strong source of leads. And people actually have so much more free time now, they're at home. So the attendance was through the roof. Actually, for the first time, I think it was, maxed out, which doesn't always happen, right, for technology and claims. And so those are 2 examples on the field sales and on the lead generation of actions and initiatives we've had to take to adapt to the kind of new environment.
Great stuff. Well, I'm glad we had you back to hear that, Adrien. So my last question for today. First of all, a huge congratulations to you all and to your companies and to your teams in making the Insurtech 100. Not an easy feat, and wonderful to have you as part of it. A question, Adrien, as we have you on the video, is kind of what's next, and there's a question to you all. So what's next in the next 12 months? So real short term, where's your focus, and what will we see?
Sure. I mean, probably I'll highlight 3 things. The team, the growth, and the product. On the team side, we're constantly looking to hire the best talent, in particular in machine learning and in deep learning. And so part of the fundraising is really to go through maintaining our lean on the intellectual property side. And so that's going to be a big target and objective for us. Secondly, on the growth side, we in the next 12 months, we want to continue to maximize our business in our core markets. And so that's North America, West Europe, and Japan, and to continue to expand this footprint. And in the next few weeks, we'll be announcing that we're entering some of the largest markets where we were not present yet, notably Spain, Nordics, so some of the largest remaining key markets in Western Europe are now markets where we have a presence. And I think that there will be a key focus for us to really grow and make the business resilient in those countries in the next 12 months. Finally, on the product side, we are constantly investing in the product with this big vision of using AI to speed up the recovery end to end. And so there's, as you can imagine, the product roadmap is quite busy.
I'm sure. Good man, thank you. Adam, what about for Floodflash?
Thanks, Matt. You wouldn't be the first person to get that the wrong way around, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I did stutter on that one. I blame it being late in the day.
Don't worry. For reasons that will become clear by the end of my answer, I think we will be changing the name of the company before too long, although we'll keep Floodflash as a product name. So the post-COVID world is, that next 12 months is really exciting, not just for us, I think, but parametric insurance in general. And the reason for that is that up until now, the thing that has often dogged parametric insurance is this idea of basis risk. The idea that what you get paid out from your parametric policy, may not be equal to what your actual losses were. Absolutely no business owner in the world is now going around being like, I wish I had perfect pound for pound or dollar for dollar indemnification for my COVID losses. They're all saying, if I had 200 grand or whatever the appropriate amount for them is in the bank on the day this started, that's what would have saved my business. That's the thing that has now changed. Catastrophe insurance is is a different dynamic to other types of insurance. Like when genuine catastrophe strikes, what you need is not a 6-month loss adjustment process for a complex catastrophe claim. It is cash fast. Like that is what saves businesses. There's no point getting the perfect, pound for pound indemnification if that goes to the liquidator in 6 months' time. Fast cash and protecting the cash flow, that is what saves businesses. Now every business in the world really knows that. So yeah, parametric insurance is time to shine, and that's what that is now such a powerful message, and one that everyone understands. And so on that sort of theme, we are like, after the success that we've now had with the small business product that is Floodflash so far, we're in the soft launch phase at the moment of a product called Floodflash Plus, which is essentially similar product, same principle, using our own sensors and trigger points based on certain payouts based on certain depths of floodwater, but it's a more bespoke process and more appropriate for clients who might be paying between sort of 20 grand and £1 million on for flood cover, whether that be a huge industrial site or it might be a nationwide portfolio. So that is one of our sort of exciting developments, which, as I say, which is actually sort of live in soft launch phase now. The second bit is that almost every country in the world has not just a flood under insurance problem, but a natural catastrophe insurance problem. This stuff takes a while in insurance, but ultimately our ambition is to be operating in a list of countries as long as Adrien's that he was just reading off. That is really where we want to be. So start making towards those steps before to our next market. Currently, it's just in the UK that Floodflash is available, and then we're also working on a new non-flood product, which is something that we're really excited about, and we think helps to solve a lot of the problems that we have really seen the sort of seen in the industry in particular over the last sort of few months. So that's another little project we are super excited about.
And what space is that in?
That is in business interruption cover. I mean, the idea is that obviously with parametric insurance is that it's not really line of specific like that. Like once you get the payout, like for our flood product, for example, customers use it for property, they use it for contents, and they use it for business interruption cover. Once that payment is made, it is theirs to do as they wish with. But this is more specifically focused on sort of wider causes of business interruption. So many businesses have discovered to their shock and disappointment over the last few months that the cover they thought they had isn't actually serving its purpose.
Very good, thanks. Jamie, what's the next 12 months hold for Snapsheet?
Yeah, so the next 12 months for us is continuing on the theme of what we said is really is really all about software as a service, and so pushing and advancing more our efforts really focused on the claims automation process. So really the full end to end. So going we've been moving from auto to adding home, but also continuing to extend into other lines, that end to end from F&OL to settlement, and really focused on streamlining and automating really all those handoffs. So the engagement, all the things around engagement, and the communication and all the services and parties involved, right? So it's not just decisions where you can automate a particular decision, but how do you handle all the rental assignments and with property inspectors and everything else, all those parties involved, bringing in those services so that you can really automate all the administrative tasks and focus people's efforts on the stuff where empathy and judgment is needed, and then strip away all the other tasks within that claims process. So whether it be our Snapsheet claims or Snapsheet appraisals, so continuing that push on virtual and putting tools in the hands of the carriers as they've made shifts in their auto model, but then also into putting that software in the hands for other lines as well.
Okay, well, I think all that's left to say is congratulations again to Floodflash, Snapsheet, and Tractable for making the Insurtech 100. Obviously, a thanks to Matt for putting it together with Sonar. Thanks to the people who came onto the call today, Adam, Jamie, and Adrien. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So as I said at the start, this is part of an ongoing series, Insurance COVID Cast. There are a few of these Insurtech 100 specials coming out, so please keep your eyes peeled for them. As always, I say, if you want to read more about the Insurtech 100, then please go to Insurance Post online on an app. And if you'd like to subscribe to Post or register for Insurance Ace, then please use the tab in the banner at the top here. Until the next Insurance COVID Cast, stay safe and goodbye, everybody. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.